I am not actually a brave rider, and when people ask me if I'd like to go hacking on their horse, I invariably say no, because I don't really want to go out into the world on a horse that I don't know has sufficient skills and competencies to understand what I'm asking of him or what the world might present him with and feel okay about that. I really don't like riding horses who are verging on being out of control. We might call them excited, but very often it's anxious. So what we're going to start to look at is what are some of the foundational skills and competencies that your horse needs to understand before you ask him to go out hacking with you. So we're going to look at some of them in a hacking situation, and then we're going to come back and see if we can explain those to your horse at home or in safer and more contained situations. So in each short clip you'll see a series of things that I need my horse to understand, either about requests from me or things the world is presenting to him, or how the two of us are going to negotiate things together. This first skill is a real non-negotiable for me. The reason a lot of people struggle when they're out hacking is that they can't get off. So they end up in situations where they are stuck on board because they know that if they get off, they won't be able to get back on again. Being able to easily get off and get back on again really reduces the risk of you and your horse being overwhelmed in a situation. Being able to mount from different objects from both sides and with your horse really clearly understanding that he can stand on long reins, that you can put your coat back on, make sure that you've got your mobile phone in your pocket, and that he doesn't need to move off, and that when you pick up the reins that doesn't mean move off, makes mounting a lot safer and something that you and your horse can rely on. So this is something you can easily practice at home in lots of different situations, and I would not be happy to take a horse out onto the moor or into an open space like this or a more challenging situation if I didn't know that the horse could be as happy and confident and calm about being mounted as you see Fuego being in this video. So one of the things I really want to pay attention to is whether my horse is actually connected with what's going on between me and him rather than just being on his own mission. So for instance, as we come up to this tree here now, say I were to get my coat caught on this tree, I want to be able to stop here without Fuego and put my reins on the neck and sort out my coat and make sure I get unhooked, and that Fuego isn't constantly saying, are we going, are we going, are we going? I think one of the reasons that people can end up getting hurt out hacking is for this very reason. Oh, there's a sheep just made a crazy appearance. Is that the horse starts to lose sight of the aids that he has well understood in safer situations. I'm sorry, sheep, where's your mummy? So that was a great example there. Fuego stood still. We've done enough work with livestock and with energy coming at him, so that sheep ran right towards him in a panic. If I had been stuck with my coat, say, on this tree, and Fuego had legged it at that point, that's where we would get into trouble. So I've broken down each element of that. Can you stand still on long reins in many, many safe situations in which he feels confident? And then I have practiced, can you stand still on long reins in increasing degrees of hardness for him? I have also worked a lot on, can you handle energy coming towards you, such as that sheep there? And that would have been something that once upon a time would have really concerned Fuego. He would have left because he got very worried about things coming towards him at speed. So that is the result of many hours of work about that energy from that sheep isn't about you. I'll tell you if we need to leave. If it had been a bear, we might need to, but as it was just a little lamb, we didn't need to. So I've worked on all of these things separately so that when we need to put them together like that, he understands them well enough and he's confident enough about it that it's not an issue. Now I'm going to ask him to go forwards. Ooh. And now I might want a bit more oomph. Can we move the sheep? So I want to be able to dial the energy right up and then come right back down again. And Fuego feel just as confident cantering up there on long reins as he does walking down here on long reins. So each element of that seemingly simple thing is something that I have worked on separately, because if I did all of those things at once and he didn't know them well, he could very easily get overwhelmed because several things happened at once there, and he might not have been able to cope with all of them happening at the same time. So I've broken each bit down so he understands each part separately in situations that he feels really good in, before I start to bring it out into more complicated or challenging situations for him. In a situation like this, where the footing is interesting and concealed, I need Fuego to be doing two things with his attention. I need him to have it on me and the requests that I've got for him, but also need him to be paying attention to the ground. And a lot of horses are so out of their bodies, particularly when there's a rider on board, that they're not paying attention to what their feet are doing. And that's why we can end up feeling unsure or unconfident that our horse is going to trip or stumble because they're rushing, they're out of balance, and they're so concerned with everything else that's going on that one of their key responsibilities, which is where are my feet. So we're going to have some simple ways that we can work on that on the ground and without having to be able to access somewhere like this, so that if you were to ever want to come somewhere like this, your horse would have some of the skills that he needs. And even if you don't, it's a really, for a horse, mentally and physically beneficial thing for the horse to be in his body with his mind sufficiently that he can gently pay attention to me and understand that some of his priority is to pay attention to the footing. And then I can pay attention to things like if sheep or a herd of deer were to suddenly explode out of the bracken, what I might ask him to do in relation to that. So it's, again, a seemingly simple but actually quite complex task. And one of the reasons that people do often feel unsure about hacking is because they're worried that their horse is going to fall or trip or stumble. And when horses really are out of their bodies, that is a possibility. In these next couple of clips, you'll see Fuego taking direction from me about the line that we're going to ride, the speed at which we're going to go, and the destination that we're heading towards. He is able to do this because I have worked on this in very safe, easy situations, so he understands the aids when he's not being challenged by the world. You will also see me sharing responsibility with him. So I am also sufficiently getting out of his way, managing my own balance, allowing him to use the balancing pole of his head and neck, that he can be responsible for his side of the deal, which is to take the direction I've given him and then make the best of the situation that we're in. I wouldn't want to do this with a horse that wasn't able to have this kind of two-way conversation with me about the management of this. In some situations, I might decide that it's easier for me and Fuego if I get off and lead him. And in a situation like this, where it's really quite rocky and it's slidey because it's rained loads, that's the choice I'm going to make. And this means that my leading needs to be really good. So one of the reasons I've got a halter on under my bridle is so that I don't have to lead him off the bit, and so that there can easily be enough space between us. So in safe situations, I work a lot on, can you manage to keep this distance between us? Because in a situation like this, that's where it becomes really important. So Fuego now has got two jobs again, paying attention to his feet scrambling over this, and also paying attention to my feet. So I would like him to keep the same distance between his front feet and my feet as best he can coming down here. And I would like to know that he's going to stop if I stop. So if I were to slip or to fall over or something else would happen, I'd know that he would stop. So off we go. And I'm going to give him complete freedom of his head and neck so that he can manage his own balance as best he can. But then, for instance, here I think, oh, I need to stop. Fuego understands that when my feet stop, his feet should stop. So in return, I'm saying to him, I won't pull on your head and neck. You can absolutely use that lever of your head and neck as a balancing pole. But then your responsibility is to understand that when my feet stop, your feet should stop. And that we keep the same distance between us. So as with everything we're going to look at in this course, I didn't start working on this with Fuego out here. So in our absolute everyday handling, this is something that I try to explain to him. And I have it well understood before I bring it out into situations like this.
Many of us dream of being able to canter and gallop out on hacks, and it's certainly something I enjoy. But again, it's not something I would enjoy on a horse who doesn't understand how to do it and stay relaxed about it. I don't want to end a canter with tears in my gloves and aching in my biceps. I don't want my horse to only understand that higher speeds means me pulling on him and him pulling on me. So again, this is something that I would gradually have introduced to a horse, taking real care to do things like not always associate the same areas with increased speed, to be checking that my horse is still able to respond to my aids, to backtrack if I need to. So this is something that any of us can develop as part of our hacking program and do it in a way where we both enjoy it rather than both of us holding our breaths and hoping that we get to the end. But it takes time and care and preparation. What you'll see in this short clip with me and Fuego is Fuego standing on long reins, waiting to be asked to go, cantering on long reins, we're not pulling on each other, and then easily stopping at the end and immediately his energy coming back down. I want me and my horse to be able to think things through together. We can see in this short clip is a not very easy to negotiate gait. I have to hold it open with my body. So Fuego has to think carefully about how to manage himself around me and the gate. I have to know that he's not going to push on me there. Then I have to be able to send him through the gate. I've kept my rope too short, so then he gets stuck. So then he has to be able to take direction from me to be able to turn and go down the path. That's quite a lot of understanding that has to take place between us for a relatively simple task. Again, this is about shared responsibility between the two of you, but knowing that your horse is ultimately going to take direction from you about things like speed. So in what you're about to see, it would be very easy for a horse to do this far too fast because it might make life easier for them in some respects. So I really need to have taught my horse how to stay mentally and physically in the halter so that he is balanced enough both in his brain and body that he can take guidance from me about the speed and the line that we're taking, which you'll see in a minute here. I have to just say to Fuego he can go past the bins, and then that he can turn to the left. So again, there's lots of stuff that you can work on here in your daily handling that really pays off. In part 2, we're going to look at some additional hazards or challenges or opportunities that you might come across when you're out in different situations. So more urban situations, traffic, some of the other things that we might encounter. And I'm going to ask you to think through, what would my horse need to understand well in order to be able to meet this challenge or opportunity and be able to stay connected with me and feel good about it? And what do I know about my horse that at the moment would give me information that this would be overwhelming for him or too much? Then we're going to start to look at, in parts 3 and 4, the daily micro practices that you can develop that feed into this bigger picture. Because it really wouldn't make sense to try and teach your horse these things out on the road or in the forest or on the beach. That's where things can really go wrong and where horses and people can get scared. So we want to try and put our horse in a situation where he is able to learn, and then we gradually expand that learning and take it out into the world. All too often, people are basically riding wild animals. So they are, as I have done in the past, either relying on the inherent good nature of the horse, or strong equipment, or their own bravery and ability to ride what shows up. I don't want to do any of those things. The first one I think is unfair on the horse. The second one is definitely unfair on the horse. And the third one I don't have anymore. I'm not a super brave gung-ho rider these days. So therefore I'm going to take the time to prepare my horse as best I can for the things that we might meet out in the world. I'm going to try to understand who my horse is and as an individual, and what level of support he might need from me in different situations. And I'm going to try to recognise where both of our thresholds are on any given day so that I can make sensible decisions on our behalves.